Today we will read a nonfiction text that gives us information about the life cycle of a shortleaf pine tree. An informational text is one kind of nonfiction. It gives facts about a topic. As you read From Seed to Pine Tree, I want you to look for the main topic and details, photographs, and facts about the shortleaf pine tree. Before we begin reading, I would like to go over a few vocabulary words. Our first one is life cycle, the stages a living thing goes through during its life. Next, we have towering, extremely tall. And lastly, sprouts, a small growth on a plant. As we are reading today, we will be only reading the sections titled Beautiful Pines, a small seed, a seedling sprouts, growing tall, and a mighty pine. These can be found under our table of contents. And our thinking job will be to listen for new facts and details that you hear about the shortleaf pine tree. So let's begin reading our informational text for today, From Seed to Pine Tree, Following the Life Cycle by Suzanne Slade, illustrated by Jeff Yeesh. Beautiful pines. Pine trees are known for their long, thin leaves called needles. Pine trees are evergreens, so their needles stay green year-round. These beautiful trees are found in forests, parks, and maybe even your yard. More than 150 kinds of pine trees belong to the pine family. They all have the same basic life cycle. Let's look at the life cycle of the shortleaf pine tree. Why are the shortleaf pines also called evergreen trees? I'll give you a moment to think about that. That's correct. It's because their needles stay green all year round. Now let me direct your attention to the caption below the map. In the United States, the shortleaf pine tree is found in 22 states. It grows as far south and west as Texas, throughout the eastern part of the country, and as far north as New York. Wow, I can see that pine trees are in a lot of the United States. A small seed. A towering pine tree begins life as a tiny brown seed. The winged seed is protected inside a closed pine cone. In fall, the pine cone opens. The wind carries the winged seed to the ground. This seed starts to germinate or sprout. When temperatures rise in spring, a seed also needs water and air to begin growing. What is needed to get a seed to grow into a pine tree? I'll give you a minute to think of that. A seed needs water and air to begin growing. Now look at the caption that's in brown at the bottom right hand of your screen. And let's read. A seed has nutrients or food inside itself to help it grow. It uses the food until the plant is big enough to make its own. A seedling sprouts. When a seed begins to sprout, the tough outer coat of a seed opens. Soon, tiny roots grow downward into the ground. They take in water and hold the seed in place. Soon, a green shoot sprouts upward toward the bright sunlight. Next, green needles grow from the shoot. The seed has become a young tree called a seedling. 1. Seed opens. 2. Roots grow. 3. shoot sprouts, or needles grow. What step occurs after the green shoot sprouts upward toward the bright sunlight? I'll give you a minute to think of that. The step that occurs after the green shoot sprouts upward toward the bright sunlight is the green needles grow from the shoot. Now let's read our caption in the blue box at the bottom right hand of the screen. Most short-leaf pine seedlings die before they are a year old. Sometimes this happens because seedlings do not get enough water. Other seedlings are eaten by hungry insects. Often too many seeds fall in a small area. There may not be enough nutrients for all of them to survive. Growing tall. A seedling needs air, sunlight, and water to grow. It uses these seeds to make food in its needles. This process is called photosynthesis. A short-leaf pine seedling becomes a sapling when it is 3 years old. A sapling has a strong, woody trunk and looks like its parent tree. What things does the seedling use to make food in its needles? I'll give you a minute to think of that. Let's see if you got it right. A seedling needs air, sunlight, and water to grow. It uses these things to make food in its needles. Let's look at our caption at the bottom in the orange box. During photosynthesis, pine trees make a gas called oxygen in their long needles. People and animals need oxygen to live. A mighty pine. A sapling grows taller each year until it becomes as a mighty pine tree. When a short-leaf pine tree is 20 years old, it will be about 60 feet, 18 meters tall. Most full-grown short-leaf pine trees reach a height of 100 feet, 31 meters. That's about as tall as a 10-story building. How tall will a full-grown short-leaf pine tree become in 20 years? I'll give you a minute to think of that. A full-grown short-leaf pine tree will become 60 feet or 18 meters tall in 20 years. Now, let's read our caption at the bottom of the screen in the brown box. In fall, some of the short-leaf pine tree's needles turn brown and fall off. Other needles stay green all winter. That's why it's called an evergreen tree. In spring, a pine tree grows new needles on the tips of its branches. Now we're going to stop here for today in our text and continue on to our reading lesson. So for today's reading lesson, our objective is to determine the topic and central idea of a text using supporting evidence. So, in determining the central idea, we have to consider our topic, and that is the person or thing that the text is mostly about. Most of the time, you will be able to determine the topic because there will be certain words that repeat multiple times in the text. Our central idea is the most important idea or point about the topic. And then we have our supporting evidence. That's our details, our facts, our examples that are in the text that tell us about our central idea. So in order to determine our central idea, we will use the what, so what strategy for our lesson on today. In using this, we ask ourselves, what is the text about? And that's our topic. Then we ask ourselves, so what is important about our topic? That will help us to put together our supporting evidence to come up with our central idea of the paragraph. So let's look at this section from the text and follow along with me as I show you how I determine the central idea of the section titled Beautiful Pines. Pine trees are known for their long, thin leaves called needles. Pine trees are evergreens, so their needles stay green year-round. These beautiful trees are found in forests, parks, and maybe even your backyard. More than 150 different kinds of trees belong to the pine family. They all have the same basic life cycle. Let's look at the life cycle of the shortleaf pine tree. So the first thing I have to ask myself, what is this paragraph about? I think this paragraph is about pine trees because I see pine trees repeated multiple times in this paragraph. Then I have to ask myself, so what's important about pine trees in this paragraph? And I think it's that pine trees are known for their beautiful and being green all year round. So from there, I can determine my central idea. I think the author is trying to provide information about why shortleaf pine trees are called evergreens. Let's try another one. Okay, let's try another one together. Let's look at this section titled A Small Seed. A towering pine tree begins life as a tiny round seed. The winged seed is protected inside a closed pine cone in fall. The pine cone opens. The wind carries the winged seed to the ground. This small seed starts to germinate or sprout. When temperatures rise in spring, a seed also needs water and air to begin growing. What is our paragraph about? Remember, this is the topic of our paragraph. We will look for the words or word. So, before we try another one together, I would like for you to take out a sheet of paper, fold it in thirds as you see on the screen, and I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to do that. In the first box, I want you to write the word what. In the second column, I want you to write the word so what. And in the third column, I want you to write central idea so that for the next examples, you can practice them yourselves in writing. Remember, you can use your picture that's on the screen to guide you. Keep working. You're doing great. About 30 more seconds. All right, let's begin reading our text so that we can determine our what, so what, and our central idea. Growing tall. A seedling needs air, sunlight, and water to grow. It uses these things to make food in its needles. This process is called photosynthesis. A shortleaf pine seedling becomes a sapling when it is 3 years old. A sapling has a strong woody trunk and looks like its parent tree. So, the first thing we have to ask ourselves is, what is this paragraph about? Our what will give us the topic. So we need to see which word or words are repeated often in our text. I'm going to give you about 1 minute to determine the what of this paragraph. You may begin. Keep working. All right, let's check our work. The what in this section growing tall is pine trees growth. Now let's ask ourselves, so what's important about the pine trees growth? I'll give you about 1 minute to think about and write that answer down in the section of your organizer that says so what. All right, let's check our so what. Hopefully you put pine trees need sunlight, air, and water to grow. It takes 3 years to become a sapling. Now we have to use our what and our so what to help us to determine our central idea. I'm going to give you 1 minute to think about and to write down in the third column of your organizer what your central idea is. Remember, our central idea is going to begin with to provide information. You may begin. You're doing great. Keep working. All right, let's check your answer. The central idea of the section titled Growing Tall is to provide information about what a pine tree needs to grow and how the seed becomes a sapling. Hopefully you got that right. If not, we're going to try another one. Let's try another one together. Let's look at a new excerpt from our text. A mighty pine. A sapling grows taller each year until it becomes a mighty pine tree. When a short-leaf pine tree is 20 years old, it will be about 60 feet, 18 meters tall. Most full-grown short-leaf pine trees reach a height of 100 feet, 31 meters. That's about as tall as a 10-story building. So once again, the first question we have to ask ourselves is, what is this paragraph about? What is our topic? What are the words that repeat themselves often? I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to determine the topic of our section titled A Mighty Pine. All right, let's see if you got that answer correct. The what for this section titled A Mighty Pine is a pine tree's growth because we have a lot of evidence showing the text talking about the height of the tree, how full grown it is, the feet, the meters. It's as tall as a 10-story building. Now we have to ask ourselves, so what is important about a pine tree's growth? And then we write that in the second portion of our graphic organizer. I'm going to give you 1 minute to write that down in your graphic organizer under So What. You may begin. Keep working, you're doing great. Remember to refer back into the text if you need it to help you. All right, let's check your work and let's see if you were able to determine the so what is important in the section titled A Mighty Pine. The answer is how the sapling becomes a strong, tall pine tree and lives for many years. So far, we've determined the what our section is about, which is a pine tree's growth, and the so what's important about a pine tree's growth, which is how the sapling becomes a strong, tall pine tree and lives for many years. Now let's use this information to determine our central idea. I'm going to give you about 1 minute to write down your central idea. Remember, at the beginning of your central idea, to write to provide information. You may begin. Keep working, you're doing great. Remember to refer back to the text if you need to. About 30 more seconds and we'll check your central idea. All right, let's check. Hopefully you had something similar to provide information about the height of the short-leaf pine tree as it gets older. So we have just determined what our paragraph was about, the so what, that it was important, and ultimately determined our central idea. Great job. You're on your way to determining the central idea for your nonfiction text independently. So today we learned what a topic is in an informational text and how it can help us better understand the central idea of a text. As you read your informational text independently today, I want you to think about what the paragraph is about and so what is important about the what. This will help you to better understand and determine your central idea. Before you begin working, I would like to give you a few tips on selecting the just right book to use this strategy to determine your topic and central idea. When choosing the just right book, you want to open to any page and put a finger up for every word that you aren't sure of. So if you end up with 0 words incorrect, that book is too easy. If you get 1 or 2 words incorrect, that may be perfect. If you get 3 to 4 words incorrect, maybe give it a try. But if you get 5 words incorrect, that book may be too hard. After you select the book that is easiest for you to read, for this particular strategy, you need to use books that are nonfiction, that have headings, that have captions, that have diagrams. Books that will not work for this strategy are books that are like fairy tales or realistic fiction. So in choosing the correct book, it will make it easier for you to implement your strategy, this what, so what strategy to determine central idea and your topic. So have fun reading those great books. See you next time. Thank you again from the Elementary Curriculum Department.